VCT, America's last chance. Well, okay, the last chance qualifier for all the regions, but in this case, America's last chance qualifier to get to champions starts this weekend. And obviously, this is an important series for every team that's involved that is not already qualified. Those teams being Evil Geniuses, Loud, and NRG, having already gone to Tokyo. If you're not aware of the format of this event, it's not just a simple bracket or even a round robin. It's I guess you would call this a gauntlet bracket, but it's also double elimination. But basically, the higher you ended the regular season, the further along in the bracket you are already placed. So in this case, Cloud9, Leviathan are placed at the very end. Furia between them, and then our opening matchups are MIBR versus Crew and Sentinels versus 100 Thieves. Now, if you are a fan of North American Valorant, super excited for VCT Americas to start, and you hit a coma. Went to a coma, you're out cold, and now you're woken back up, and you're wondering, wait a second, why are Sentinels and 100 Thieves facing each other so early? They're supposed to be, I guess NRG was supposed to be the number one team in America, but that could just be hindsight 2020, but like it's 100 Thieves and Sentinels. It's supposed to be really, really good, right? They were one of the opening premier matchups of the entire league. How do they both end up in this situation to not only be in the last chance qualifier, but to be both so early on in this event? Needless to say, both these teams have had their struggles, though, admittedly, different reasons. Both in regards to getting the team all together, but in entirely different avenues. In Sentinel's case, it was about just getting a roster ready. So there was a situation with changing the coach early on, which was a good move. It wasn't working out with Sicko at the start, but then they decided still wasn't working out. They were moving Def, and then Tens had his wrist issue. And throughout all of those changes, they ended up in a really good spot, an incredibly solid spot. Definitely at the final week, one of the best looking teams in the region, but they've accrued too many losses. And with the number of teams that were all 4 and 5 in the series, with the tiebreaker going down to map differential, just a hair's breadth away from being able to make their way into playoffs, where I think Sentinels could have had a solid run of their own and very, I don't want to say likely, but reasonably could have qualified to Tokyo, probably over Evil Geniuses. Like, I think Loud and Energy are just too consistently good, but Evil Geniuses obviously became a really good team in their own right. It's not like they would have just been smashed by the Sentinels, but either way, Sentinels, I think, would have had a good shot in the playoffs. But here they are. 100 Thieves, on the other hand, for them, it was more about getting a solid game plan running, because when you look at their playstyles, when you look at their gameplay, it's kind of just Cryo trying to make openings by himself, and then the rest of the team being able to follow up what he starts. But the synergy just isn't there for this team as it is for Sentinels. Sentinels have such a good foundation of step-by-step flow charting, create an opening, give Tens a duel. Tens, with his ability, wins that duel, but it's all one clear, concise unit, where 100 Thieves, it's more of just 5 really, really good mechanical players all thrown on a field together, throwing Hail Marys left and right. And it can work. It absolutely can work. But in a game like Valorant that is defined so much by different abilities and creative uses of those abilities to sort of warp the map and manipulate the map in the way that you need to in order to give your team the advantage, there was always something missing. And it seemed that you needed the firepower of Cryo, you needed the firepower of Asuna to just brute force their way into a winning opportunity. Now, for the record, all of this that is being said right now it's a lot of conjecture. It's been 2 months since any of these teams last played, and it's basically just been 2 months of not break. Maybe a little bit of a break, but 2 months of workshopping, 2 months of these teams, and they have everyone that is going to be in this last chance qualifier scrimming. So it's not like we only have these 2 teams trying to figure something out. How do we get some good practice in? All of these teams, plus more, plus a lot of the challengers teams that are really good scrim partners as well, I imagine, have been putting in a lot of work these last couple of months. So I think that it's not just a possibility, it's 90% reality that both of these teams, especially 100 Thieves, are going to look very different from where we last saw them. When we last saw Sentinels, they were a really good team already. As I said, probably had a good chance of making it to Tokyo if they won that last map, or I guess second to last map against Furia, if they, just edged their way into playoff contention. I think they would have had a good shot there. 100 Thieves, not so much. Can't really say the same for them with such confidence. But 100 Thieves, I think with these 2 months off, I'm hoping that they take these pieces, these options for aggressive playstyles and aggressive fast playmaking, almost in the way that you see Furia play. They really try and lean more into that because you have probably the best, maybe not the best, but they're certainly up there. Because you have such a strong duo of duelists in Cryo and Asuna. Asuna moving from primary duelist to secondary / primary initiator was really good for his career. I think that's where his abilities shine more. But him being able to flex so confidently into Raze, who was always his best duelist agent, playing with Raze, with Cryo on the Jet, is such a strong 1-2 punch. If they can get Bang, Derek, and Stellar to be able to support that a lot more confidently, that's a really strong win condition for 100 Thieves. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, in this matchup especially, it's going to have to be mechanical outplays because, again, the way that Sentinels have shown that they can work as a unit and set up 10s to get these picks, to find these openings. One, I don't know if 100 Thieves can rework their entire game plan to alleviate pressure like that. I also don't think they necessarily need to. As long as they set up Cryo and Asuna for success in these fights, a head-to-head between all of these players, roster to roster, looks really, really close. But 100 Thieves might just be edging it out on the mechanical side, especially when you look at Cryo and Asuna, Bang, and Derek. Stellar, that's the big question for me. I think Stellar has shown some big weakness on trying to be a hardcore anchor with agents like Killjoy and Viper. That's probably been one of the biggest weaknesses for 100 Thieves defensive side specifically, but for everyone else on that roster, as far as being individual players, there's certainly an argument for them, each of them individually, to edge out the opposition on a head-to-head between Sentinels players. Now, Sentinels, as I've said, their chemistry together, the way they're able to play off of each other, not just Saucy and Pancata as a duo coming in from champion winners Loud, but even just the entire squad through and through, their beat to beat to beat playing off of each other definitely raises their level to meet the raw firepower, the raw mechanics that 100 Thieves will be likely continuing to throw at them here. And then when it comes down to the coaching staff, which again will be augmented because of the 2-month break, I do edge it out to Mike's. Admittedly, he has done more content, he's done more talk shows, he's expressed his opinions and shared his thoughts publicly more than Kaplan has. So there's a real possibility that Kaplan is the smartest guy in the scene. I'm just not personally aware of it, so I have to give it to Mike's. But it's this opening match that's really going to show, can Mike's really deliver in this head coaching position? He only came into 100 Thieves, if you don't remember, as the analyst to support Sean Gares, who was the head coach. And Sean Gares has had a history of being able to lead a group of young guys in a video game. Mike suddenly being thrust in that head coach position. I know why 100 Thieves trusted him with that rather than leaving him as analyst and finding someone else to replace Sean Gares. But coaching is not easy, and I know Valorant is similar to other games, so there's a lot of players who have drawn from their experiences there, however long of a tenure they've had in those previous games. Valorant is still a young game, and so there's still going to continue to be, at least for a couple more years, of development in terms of this more top-down infrastructure of how teams are set up beyond just the 5 players in the server. At the end of the day, this is a really important matchup for both of these teams with the failures that they had in the regular season. Ye said it best, whoever wins, or rather whoever loses, he wins, because both of these teams, it is very likely, depending on how things go down, of course, that whoever loses, someone is going to lose their job. At least one individual, likely multiple players, because 100 Thieves, Sentinels, they came into the VCT. I mean, every team came into the VCT to win, but especially 100 Thieves and Sentinels, these were some of the teams that were supposed to perform at the top of the level. And there is double elimination in this bracket, but that only starts in the upper bracket semifinals for the first round matchup between MIBR and Crew, and then the quarterfinals between 100 Thieves Sentinels and then Furia versus the winner of MIBR or Crew, the previous mentioned matchup. That's all single elimination. So whoever loses this matchup is going to be out. One final best of 3 of the year, and whoever loses, there are going to be changes. There have to be. So yeah, big question. Will 100 Thieves continue to play in their more aggressive playstyle? Hopefully, if they do, they'll be a lot more in sync. They'll be able to manipulate the map more with their aggressive playstyles. We've seen aggressive work. Aggression can work. Fast, high-tempo play can work in Valorant, but everyone needs to be on the same page. For 100 Thieves previously, it's been timing and the lack of ability to manipulate the map that's been their biggest failure. For Sentinels, they've looked strong once they get their current 5 lineup on the server. They've looked really good. So the question is, can 100 Thieves break through that setup that Sentinels will have? Abilities be damned, this is still a tactical shooter where it's if you can click your opponent's head, you win the game. The fact that the second match in this last chance qualifier is going to be a Cryo versus TenZ head-to-head, which we haven't seen since the opening week of VCT all those months ago, is already a title fight setup. For a lot of teams in Valorant, it's not all about the star duelist. We saw that just recently in Tokyo with Fnatic. We've seen it in previous years with teams like Gambit. But for 100 Thieves and Sentinels, it is going to be the Cryo and TenZ show. And I don't know about you, but that is already an entree coming in early on in this last chance qualifier. It's their fault. It's their own doing. But the fact that this matchup doesn't get a double elimination slot, it is one and done for one of these two teams, is, well, it's just unfortunate, shall we say. But it's going to be a great matchup either way. Those are my thoughts. I hope you're as excited to watch this match as I am. This is also when I remind you to comment, like, and subscribe, because we all need to give sacrifice to the algorithm gods on this here internet, social media hellscape that we live in right now. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.